The first time my dad almost died was in the late 80s. And I get a call from my mom in Miami Beach saying, "Sherry, you gotta come down because the doctor feels as though he's not gonna make it." At the same time, the irony of all of this is I'm rehearsing over at St. Anne's Church on Montague Street for a play called Passages. And there was this amazing, wonderful actress and director, Cynthia Belgrave, who is no longer with us, was directing me in this play called Passages, and it was about life and death. And so I called Cynthia, and I said, "Cynthia, what'll I do? You know, my father, they don't think he's gonna survive. I don't wanna let you down in the rehearsals." And she said, "Sherry, look, you gotta go, and you'll know what to do when you are down there." So I flew down to Miami, and I walk into my dad's room in ICU. And if you knew my dad before all this happened, he was 6'4", slightly brown, thinning hair, full of life, full of love. And there he was in the bed, all these tubes coming through him, fighting for his life. And then I look and I see my mom and my older sister and my brother-in-law, and they are freaked out. They are so upset and so frightened. It's kind of the first time I ever noticed that about them in a crisis. So I grab a chair and I just sit beside my dad and I hold his hand. And my family, to relieve their anxiety, kept asking my dad all sorts of questions. Of course he couldn't answer. They were really trying to relieve their own anxiety. And so in ICU, you can only stay, a short amount of time. So the nurse came in and told everybody in the family they would have to leave. And so I took my chair and I put it in the hallway and partway in my dad's room. And the whole family marches out, and my mom says to me, "You have to go." And I said, "No, I don't. I'm staying." And I did. Partway in the hallway, partway in Daddy's room. And they were in shock, and they just went out into the waiting room. When they left, I got up, walked over to my dad, and I opened his left hand. And I had brought this smooth white and black moonstone rock, and I put it in his hand, and I closed up his hand. I just brought it out of love, out of healing, blessing, whatever. And I knew I probably would never see it again. Fortunately enough, he did live another 9 months. And so I flew back to New York, and I went back into rehearsals at St. Anne's Church for this play, Passages. And what Cynthia decided to do after the play was over was have a question and answer period, which I think is always great, to have the audience involved. So we perform, and one of the questions to me was, have you experienced, somebody close to you that has died? So I said, "You won't believe this." And I told them the story of what happened to me with my dad before, while we were in rehearsals. And I said, this is not out of judgment to my family, but what I saw was my family was so freaked out and so nervous and panicked. And it was the first time for me, the turning point was, I realized that I could be there for somebody who was sick or needed me. It wasn't about me, it was about who I was there for. And I realized many years ago when I was ill for a hospital in a month, that my son's, Joseph, he visited me. He was 18 years old at the same time. And as scared as he was, he never showed it. He was like a rock. And he's like that to this day. And I realized too, I was terrified with all of this that was happening. But there was some sort of message that said to me, Sherry, it's about Daddy. It's not about you. You just be there for him. And it just made all the difference in the world for me. So, I'm newly divorced. Yay! And now, I need two things. I need an apartment share, and I need to find a full-time job because I've been in theater for a long time and not making money. So in the days of the newspapers, there used to be, as you probably all know, newspapers all over the street, everywhere, selling newspapers. Nothing was online. So what I did, I decided to buy the New York Times and look under apartment shares. And sure enough, there was an apartment share on the Upper West Side, West 86th Street, right near Riverside Park. Oh, so I called the woman and she said, look, why don't you come over tomorrow, it was in the summer, and take a look. So the next morning, bright and early, walking down the street, gorgeous tree-lined block, you know, old buildings, awnings, gorgeous. I walk into the building, a doorman. Who knew? Oh my God, I was so lucky. So anyway, the doorman announces me, and then I walk straight ahead. It's on the first floor, ring the bell, door opens, and there is Janet. She must have been about 40, 45, about 5'4", little plump, so pretty, blonde hair, blue eyes, very, very chatty. And she shows me, oh my God, at the time, wall-to-wall carpeting was in, and it was all over the apartment. So to the right was the living room and her bedroom. Straight ahead, a huge picture window and a door. You could go out in the kitchen, oh my God. And then there was a hallway, my room, which was right next to the bathroom. How convenient. She opens the door, and there is this gorgeous room, 11 by 18, another big picture window. All I would need, because everything was in storage, desk, lamps, beautiful sized bed, TV, everything that I want. So right then and there, I give her 1 month's rent, 1 month's security, and let me tell you, what I paid then and what you pay now, forget about it. So I made a deal to move in that Friday. My girlfriend meets me with a bottle of wine, and we're in my room. There was just like a little lock on the door. It was, who cared? I was so excited. And so we were drinking, and then all of a sudden I hear what I call schlepping. My roommate is schlepping back and forth in the hallway goes into the bathroom right next door to my room, turns on the light, turns on the hot water, turns on the cold water, continues schlepping back and forth, back and forth. Comes into the bathroom, she turns off the hot water, turns off the cold water, shuts the light, and she schleps back to her room. My girlfriend and I were feeling no pain, but we kind of rolled our eyes at all of this. The next day, I'm real excited because in the evening, I had met, before, this very sexy guy who was a stonemason at Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and I met him in Riverside Park, and he was hanging out with me, and I had a funny feeling he was going to stay the night. So we were feeling no pain, and we were having a good time, and guess what? Schlepping again, only this time even longer. Schlepping back and forth, turning on the light in the bathroom, turning on the hot water, turning on the cold. I don't say a word to him, but I know I made a huge mistake. This woman is a loony bin. So what I do the next morning, I go out and I get the free, now defunct Village Voice and bring it home, and I look for apartment shares. Guess what? She's renting my room and she hasn't even told me. I am freaking out. So I took off all my street clothes and I put on my running bra, put on my pants, put on my socks and sneakers. I gotta run this off in Riverside Park. And I'm ready, and I start to open the door, and I hear two female voices. Oh my God. She's showing my room and hasn't even told me. Now I flipped out. I proceed to take off my sneakers, to take off my socks, to take off my pants, to take off my bikinis, to take off my running bra, walk over to the door, open it, completely naked. She runs out screaming, and the prospective tenant kind of rolls her eyes, what is going on, and walks out. I shut the door, get dressed, call my son to help me to get out and stay with my girlfriend. And as we're walking out, I said to the doorman, did you see that crazy loon walking out? What she did, screaming and yelling. Sherry, lesson learned. When you're moving into a new building, either stand outside and talk to the residents, or if they have a doorman like me, I would have told you she's nuts. They're constantly taking her out in a straitjacket. And her father is a big-time judge, pays everybody off, so you never hear about it. Oh, such a lesson learned. After that, I found a postage stamp of a studio around the corner. I just didn't want to deal with that roommate stuff anymore. So now I need to find a full-time job. So what I do is, under Situations Wanted, I put an ad in the New York Times for administrative assistant position. So I get a call from a self-published author who wants a book publicist. Your name is Nora Hayden, and you want a book publicist? Yes, Sherry, I want a book publicist. Nora, I put an ad in for administrative assistant. Why did you call me? Sherry, I have a feeling you are very resourceful. And I said, by the way, what's the name of the book? How to Satisfy a Woman Every Time and Have Her Beg for More. What? Is this a porno book? No. Come to my townhouse on East 61st Street in Lex. Tomorrow, we'll talk about it. I was desperate. I needed a job. So I go, and sure enough on the block, all beautiful, gorgeous brownstones. I knew which one was Nora. It was bright yellow. I go, ring the bell, the door opens, and there's this blonde bombshell. That's Nora. And in the hallway, I look up. There's a pigeon in a cage with one wing. And then running around is a Vietnamese pig. I kid you not. Then she has these gorgeous French doors which open up into this flagstone patio with gardenia bushes and all marigolds and roses, and smells gorgeous. And over here is a table, a book, and a phone. That's where I was going to work. I took the job. Then she said, by the way, the book is 12 years old. Oh my God, what have I gotten into? To top it all off, the reporters for the New York City papers, they knew Nora because she had been in a lot of B movies, and she had this energy drink on the market. And they were making fun of her, of me. A wonderful way to start. And so, within 3 weeks, Nora says to me, "You are the best I ever had." Why? What made you say that? Sherry, I hear you talking, and you can turn a no into a yes. So I'll give you an example. At the time, there was a syndicated show that was huge. It was called Imus in the Morning. And I called the producer once a week for 4 weeks, just leaving a voicemail. Finally, on the 5th week, "Hi, Patrick. This is Sherry Rosen with Nora Hayden and How to Satisfy a Woman Every Time." If I hear that name once more, I'm gonna scream. Patrick, this is my job, and I am telling you, if you listen to me, Nora and Imus will hit it off. He's gonna adore her. I swear to you. Okay, Sherry. 7 a.m. next morning, limousine, we'll pick her up. Great, thank you, Patrick. As a result, Imus had Nora on once a month for 5 years. To top it all off, this 12-year-old book went on to the New York Times bestseller list for 63 weeks. Talk about turning things around. Talk about a turning point. And you know what it feels like, or at least I hope you do, when somebody is making fun of you and wants you to fail, and you turn things around and you make it to the big time. What was happening now, the reporters were calling me for interviews with Nora, for me. Oprah was calling, Good Morning America was calling, CBS This Morning, you name it, they were calling. What a trip, what a rush. This was amazing. And I learned another thing from all this. Another turning point is you learn all the rules and then you learn how to break them. I love food, but I love sex. And growing up in New England, in Lynn, Massachusetts, repression. Women didn't count. It was always about the men. How to please a man. A man's education was more important. I wanted to go to drama school. No way. You don't act smart in front of a man. You're just supposed to please him. You have no power, and you just look pretty, and that's it. And now, being a woman of a certain age, wow, I am told that I shouldn't have a lover, and God forbid he should be younger than me. I shouldn't like sex. I shouldn't want to do anything. I should just be invisible. And let me tell you something. I'm a grandmother. And what grandmothers look like then, God bless them. And what they look like now, wow, there's been a big change. So, at that repressed age of 21, I get married to my love, Leonard, and we moved to New York City. Well, in the beginning, the first year we're both together trying to, depend upon each other in this big new city from New England. But after that, things started to go downhill. I mean, the main good thing out of this marriage was 2 beautiful sons. But finally, I realized our value system was like this. He didn't think anything of lying, even to me. So after about 8 years, I said to him, hey, we should go into therapy because our marriage is collapsing. Maybe we can save it. He said, no. He said, let's live under the same roof. You go your way, I go my way, and I say, no way. I don't know how long it's going to take me to leave you. It took me 2 years, but I'm going to do it. And I don't think he believed me. So I get my own therapist. And the first thing she says to me is, Sherry, get some power back. Get a bank account. Get a checking account. Get credit cards. And get a job. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. So I got myself a part-time job. And I started to notice that my dressing was changing. And I tried for years to emulate my conservative mom and sister. Didn't quite make it. And then all of a sudden, I changed from brown hair to the red hair. And I started dressing like a gypsy with long skirts. And one day I look in the mirror and I'm going, hey, you are one good-looking young woman. I was finding my power. I was getting my power back. So Then my therapist said, okay, before you leave Leonard, I want you to experience being with other people so you don't go completely in shock. Holy Toledo. I went from no sex to sex all the time. I had to try it everywhere. It was like I had to have all different flavors, like an ice cream shop. And I tried it in the forest, in the water, on the floor, in a sauna, sometimes on the bed. You name it, I tried it. I was having the time of my life. But then, all of a sudden, the Jewish guilt, the New England guilt started to rise up. And I thought, maybe I'm a sex addict. Maybe I should go to Sex Addicts Anonymous. So I do, on 33rd Street at St. Stephen's Church. I go one night, and I go in there. There are women there, but it's mainly men. And I quietly slip in. And I hear one man say, I just got out of prison and I had violent sex and I want to have violent sex with women. Oh God. And then another guy says, I do terrible things to women and I know I must stop. And I'm going, I must get out of here. I am not a sex addict. And as soon as the break happened, you never saw anybody run out of there so fast, run on the subway, go home to my safe space. And that was another turning point for me. What I realized is I was just having the time of my life and I was getting my power back. So where we still have time, I was wondering if any of you have any questions that you wanted to ask me at all. Anybody? Any questions about any of the stories? Or storytelling or publicity? Sex? Bless you.
Sherry, when did you start writing this piece?
During COVID. I took the time during COVID in my house where I was so isolated to write all of these stories. But they needed to be, I worked on them really hard. And I also worked with a director too. Online, I would record and then I would send everything to her. And she would help me with certain movements or certain ways to speak. So it took a long time. It was a couple of years that I put this together. But I really wanted to take advantage of COVID and do something positive because it scared me so much. I thought, I need to get out of this fear and do something for others. That was my message during COVID. And I am so glad because I started to write these true stories of my life that I know so many people can identify with. And that was kind of my gift to people to show them they're not alone. And that's really an important experience for people to know that what they go through, they're not alone. And hopefully some of you can identify with some of the stories that I've shared with you today. That was the whole point. So, and I was just thinking of Cynthia Belgrave, the woman who directed me in St. Anne's Church. I don't know if you've ever been in the church. It's beautiful. It's got this gorgeous stained glass windows. But I just happened to think back, you know, when I would perform with her a lot and how wonderful she was. And it's another thing the stories do. When I write the stories, all of a sudden, all of these things maybe I had forgotten about, they all come rushing back. And because you don't memorize, I don't memorize the stories, they can turn out differently each time. And I may learn something new from these stories each time because I don't memorize them. Yeah. I think I answered your question. So I'm curious, in the audience, was there anything creative or anything that helped you during COVID? Is there anything that stands out in your mind that helped you? Because we were really in trouble during COVID, very isolated. Is there anything that helped you during the time that you can think of?
I learned to appreciate silence again.
That's beautiful. She said she learned to appreciate silence. Do you happen to meditate?
I do.
Yeah. So how long have you been meditating?
About 20 years.
And any specific kind of meditation you do?
I, in my mind, walk down a path and sit on a rock and listen to the birds. And then I just go wherever I want to.
And you find it really helps you?
I do.
You learn a lot about, at least I have learned a lot about myself through meditation, and that silence.
Yes.
And it really taught me how not to be afraid to be alone. That was huge for me because I never wanted to be alone. And then, of course, you know, COVID came, and that was it. I live alone, and that was it. You know, if you, it was challenging. It was just challenging, but good for you. Anybody else? What they experienced during COVID? And it doesn't have to be positive. I mean, if you want to share whatever, you know. There's no judgment here whatsoever. So I want to thank you all for being such a lovely audience. It's always a delight to come here, hang out with you, and share my stories. I hope you could identify with them, and I bless you all for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.